Hey, I'm so glad to have you guys join us today here at Mr. Mark's Classroom. My name is Mark Jones, and I'm the children's pastor in Oklahoma City, and I have a great guest for you to enjoy with me today. I have enjoyed conversing with him over email and then having him actually speak to our children's ministers here in Oklahoma, which, by the way, they were so stinking blessed. I mean, afterwards, I was like, okay, stop. Let's just get on focus what we need to finish for today, because they just weren't finished. They just wanted to keep talking. This is Brian Dollar, and he is a children's pastor in Little Rock, Arkansas, and leads out in high voltage ministry. I tell you what, this is the guy to know whenever you're going to talk about children's ministry. And he has an incredible book that has just come out, actually, and a course too. I'm going to let him tell us about it. I have so appreciated what's coming out with all of these resources. So, Brian, welcome, and thank you for your time to be a part of this and help us.
Hey, Mark, it is my pleasure. I'm very thankful to be able to join you again. That was a lot of fun last time. And hopefully people will feel as positively after this session as they did their last one, because that was certainly a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know that they will. And I think that you're kind of, to many, you might still be a secret in their arsenal of ministry resources. So I hope that they are going to find you now and be able to enjoy all the things like I have. And I really do appreciate you. So tell everybody, first of all, how long have you been in kids ministry and working with parents and kids?
Believe it or not, I am celebrating my 25th year as a kids pastor this year.
Yeah.
I started in 1992 in my sophomore year of college.
Wow.
I always thought I was supposed to be a youth pastor, and then my pastor kind of slipped me into kids ministry for a few weeks as I thought of it. And I fell in love with it. God put a passion in my heart and haven't looked back since. And so we developed high voltage kids ministry resources 1998, I think it was. And they can find all that at highvoltagekids.com. We provide curriculum, music, worship, videos, you name it. We got a little bit of it. And what you mentioned, the book, last year I released a book called Talk Now and Later, which is really a book for parents on how to equip themselves on how to have the tough topic conversations with their kids. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you a little bit about later in the actual session that we're going to do here about
Now, first, I want you to tell me about your family, because you are a dad. I mean, these are roads that you walk.
Hey, absolutely. I've got a 17-year-old daughter. Her name's Ashton. She's beautiful, and I love her so much. And then I've got a 15-year-old son named Jordan, and he's stretching my patience right now at this stage of life. But I love him very much as well. He's super talented, super gifted, and always on the go. And I remember being 15. Matter of fact, I was 15 when the Lord got a hold of my life and turned everything around.
I kind of am 15, moments.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a wife. Her name is Sherith, and we've been married. Well, we're going to celebrate 20 years in a few months. So
that's pretty cool. And you still have all your hair. That's pretty amazing.
Well, I don't know. It's receding a little bit. Man. I mean, really, I'm noticing it getting further and further back as we go along. So.
Well, it's just so good to have your friendship, and I know that all the people who work with you adore you. And anyway, I'm anxious for you to share some of this great resource. Parenting ministry continues to be a growing need in our churches, and the problem is the resources. We've got these parents looking to us what do I do about? And you're like, I don't know. And so when I got your book and I started looking at the contents, just the contents, I was like, yes, these are the tough things that we need answers for. I love it how you use the Bible to answer it so they have truth. And that's fantastic.
Absolutely. There is no truth but God's truth. And
that's right. Hey, we're going to put all of what you're going to talk about, this handout more or less, on the show notes, as well as a link to the book and the course, because I want people to be able to find you very quickly and easily. Okay?
Absolutely.
Hey, let's dive in.
All right, I will. You kind of already set it up, but really, it's my goal is to help children's pastors, children's ministry leaders deal with the ever-changing culture that we have and the very difficult subjects and issues that we are dealing with. And so I've got a presentation, and if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of share my screen here.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
I'll see if this works, and hopefully you'll be able to.
And for those who are listening on audio, just know that you can go to mrmarksclassroom.com and you'll be able to search Brian Dollar and be able to find that very easily and see all of these slides very easily, okay?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, basically, the question is, how should we as the church respond to this ever-changing culture? All of this change that's happening around us, what should we do? We live in an incredible country. We live in the United States of America, land of the free, home of the brave. I mean, it is the greatest country in the world as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm sure I'm not biased or anything, but America, it stands on top in a lot of respects. We have the number one economy in the world, $18.5 trillion U.S. economy. We got the number one military in the world. We have an annual budget of $601 billion with a B dollars for our military. And then when it comes to Christianity, the United States tops the list with 226,886,418 residents who claim Christianity as their core belief system. And they are among 350,000 Christian churches that are in the United States. And if you ask the average American Christian, I think they will tell you that the reason why we're number one in so many areas with our economy and with our military and you name it is because we are a Christian nation founded on Christian principles. We are one nation under God. That's what they're going to tell you. Matter of fact, it's on our money, man. I mean, it's right there. In God we trust. However, with all of the prosperity, the success, the focus on God, you would think that the United States is in the middle of an incredible spiritual awakening, right? But I don't know anybody that I talk to that feels like our country is in a time of great spiritual awakening.
Right.
The Christian church has been a cornerstone of American life for centuries, really. But a lot has changed in the last 30, 40 years. Americans are attending church a lot less. More people believe that you don't really even have to attend church to be a Christian. The children that you and I are ministering to on a regular basis, man, they're growing up in a time in the United States that's filled with skepticism toward God, but really a lot of skepticism towards the church. And if you add to this the broader secularizing trend in American culture and the growing antagonism, not just skepticism, but antagonism toward faith,
right?
You're talking about really uncertain times for the church in America. And I don't have to sit here and rattle off a list of statistics to convince you that we're in a tough time, but we really, really are. And a lot of our kids are in a difficult time, and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn for answers to the questions that their friends are asking them and that they're even thinking themselves. And many of our children are questioning who they are, their own identity. They're wondering, well, what's going on in my life and who am I really? Back in the Leave It to Beaver days, you remember those, right, Mark?
Yeah.
Way back when.
Use the reruns.
Yeah, you watch the reruns, of course. You're not that old.
Right.
But when a child was about to become an adolescent, back in the day, their parents would sit them down and they would kind of have the talk with them, right? And usually it was some, incredibly confusing nonsense about birds and bees and whatnot. And the kid left confused and the parent thought they'd accomplished a lot. But, that was really the first time that a child would ever hear about sex. But now, many children have heard about sex. They've been exposed to pornography. They've even experimented sexually by the age of 10.
Oh my.
Yeah, and
Wow.
increasingly more and more, the playground and the school bus are where more children are getting their sex education, not from home.
Wow.
So what are we supposed to do? I mean, that's the question. What do we do as the Church of Jesus Christ when faced with a culture that is completely anti-Christian and completely anti-God? Well, I mean, there's a lot of reactions that we could have. First of all, we could, let's see, all of a sudden, we could hide from it.
Yeah.
We could kind of stick our head in the sand, and we could say, "Oh, I'm not seeing what's going on here. There's too much wickedness in this culture, and I'm just gonna get as far away from it as possible." And we got a lot of people who choose to hide from it. They kind of think that they're going to preserve their spiritual purity by avoiding any contact whatsoever with the culture, and they'll excuse me. They'll get together with other Christians, and they'll have talks about how this secular culture is horrible, and they'll simply try to cocoon themselves away from everything that has to do with the culture. And really, they don't have much to do with it at all. They're hiding from it. They don't engage their non-Christian coworkers. They don't talk to their neighbors about the Lord. They try to hide from their neighbors. They won't allow their children to even be friends with someone who isn't from their church. They believe that they should do their best to come out from among them and be ye separate, which I know that's scripture, but that was not God telling us have nothing to do with the world.
Right.
So hiding from it is not the way to go. But other people take the route of criticizing it.
Mm-hmm.
You criticize it. And usually when people take that route, they do so loudly and obnoxiously. You know what I'm saying? They criticize the culture. They post rants on their Facebook page about how evil this world is and how the world just needs a Holy Ghost revival, and all those things. They're quick to announce that they're boycotting the latest company that supports gay marriage or the latest movie that purportedly has a gay character in it.
Yeah.
Christians in this second group, they look down their noses at culture. And they take kind of this superior attitude towards what's going on in society in general. And they engage in what they call culture wars. And sadly, I see that these people who choose to do that, they communicate their disapproval of the culture in a very unkind and an arrogant way. And they don't even realize it.
Yeah, I agree.
They try to point out what's wrong with the culture around them, and they try to point out that their way is better. And all the while, their unsaved neighbor next door reads their angry posts, and they think to themselves, man, if this is what a Christian's about, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Exactly.
And that's a sad situation. So criticizing it, probably not the way to go with it. But other people, they choose to just go along with it. They think, the church is just supposed to assimilate right in the middle of culture. And it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum of the first two approaches. They think we'll just try to look exactly like the culture. We'll try to act just like the culture. They're so enamored and influenced by the secular culture that they really avoid the hard work and the potential conflict of doing things and living their life differently from the mass of humanity. They actually end up endorsing and embracing pretty much whatever is going on in society. And that's dangerous.
It is.
The church to just go along with it is dangerous. The author Russell Moore put it this way. He said, a church that loses its distinctiveness is a church that has nothing distinctive with which to engage the culture. A worldly church is of no good to the world. Boy, isn't that true?
Absolutely.
The worldly church is of no good to the world. We've got to stand out. We've got to make a difference. We have to live our lives differently. So what do we do? Well, I suggest we take the fourth approach that I'm going to lay out for you, and that is this. We should engage and transform the culture. Not just go along with it. We need to engage with it with dialogue and with our life, and we need to be influencers in that culture. We need to transform the culture. We got to infuse it with the truth and the values of Jesus that have radically changed our lives. Mm-hmm. See, Christians who understand that they got to engage their non-Christian neighbors. They got to engage their coworkers. And really, every member of culture in order to lovingly introduce Jesus and show his values to them. You see, those Christians, they make a difference because they live and they work with the vision of being salt and light in a culture.
Yeah, very noticeable.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're intentional about it.
Right.
You know, they to transform that culture and not just go along with it, because they represent Jesus in everything they do. Now, they do so kindly and in love, but they do so unapologetically. They are who they are because Jesus has made them that way and transformed their life. And their goal is to transform culture just like Jesus transformed them. That's the kind of response the church needs to have.
That's right.
I don't think we're called to sit around on social media and bark and gripe about the culture. That does nothing but just tick people off, and it makes Jesus look bad. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, let's be honest.
That is not so. And I've seen Christians and even pastors, Mark, I'm sure you've seen it, that will get on and just say the most hate-filled messages in the name of Jesus about a group of people or about a company or about an individual that's not living for God, as if sinners are supposed to do anything other than act like sinners.
And so, by the way, you got to know, I usually unfollow them.
Immediately.
Because it's so awful.
I don't want my timeline filled with all that mess, you know.
Right.
But you know, the sad thing is, I don't think most of those Christians realize the negative impact that they're making. I think they actually believe they're doing something good by throwing all that negativity.
Doing all that. Yeah.
But what happens is people see that and they form their opinion of Jesus as a result of this person's negativity, hate-filled message about a particular topic or a particular group. As children's pastor, as kids ministry leaders, we got to be aware that every word we say makes a difference. With our kids, we got to be aware every word, every attitude we display makes a difference. And so what are we supposed to do? What are some ways that those who are watching us right now, as children's ministry leaders, what can they do to transform culture?
I'm hoping you're fixing to roll that out.
Well, I am.
Okay, let's do it.
Because right there in front of them, every single weekend, they're a room full of culture influencers.
That's right.
Kids that they are ministering to are infiltrating their culture at the school level, and really some of them with dude. I've got kids in our church that are so awesome. They've got their own YouTube channel and they've got thousands and thousands of subscribers, and they're only 11. I'm like, what? They're influencing the culture right where, and so it's pretty awesome.
Right.
We've got to realize that we've got kids who are going into the largest mission field, the public school, every single day, and we can be an influence in their life. So let me walk through some ways that you can respond to a culture that's hostile to the gospel. Number one, be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah.
Be proactive and not reactive.
That's a good point.
When the Supreme Court, you remember June 2015, I think it was, they announced that suddenly marriage to same-sex couples was legal nationally, and that was going to be the law of the land. And that weekend, I had a lot of children's pastor friends text me and say, well, man, what am I supposed to say this weekend? How do I approach this with our parents and with our kids? And I understand the sentiment. I mean, after all, the way that you diffuse the effect of a lie is to declare the truth, right?
Yes.
So they realize, this lie is coming out. So we got to tell the truth of what God's plan is for marriage. And that's good. The guidebook for our living is the Word of God. The problem is this. They're asking me, what should I do to respond to what the Supreme Court has said? They're waiting until after a crisis hits society before they start telling their kids the truth.
Wow.
We shouldn't do that.
Right.
We should tell them before they hear the lies. Be proactive, not reactive. But when it comes to situations like homosexuality, sexual identity, anything having to do with sex, I mean, that's just like a hot button word in church circles, because there's been that long held belief for so long that the church just should not talk about such things.
Yeah, and children's ministers are like, well, they'll do that in the youth ministry. So they're passing it when you just identified how kids are exposed to this so young. Like,
And,
I have a
and
fifth grade dad that's asking me right now, do you have something that I could use? And so we're putting together a retreat, and we're going to go, and the women and the girls are going to go, and the men and the boys are going. We have a speaker. It's going to be a lot about hygiene because they need it. And and we're gonna get this ball rolling, and we can do it in a healthy way, and we can see what the Word of God says.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other things. See, the church at large has been too slow to approach this. Not only do they say, well, they'll handle it somewhere else, but they don't even want to even talk about it. Even some youth groups are not addressing the issue because they're afraid of what some parents might say, because people have been taught the church should stay away. Here's the problem with that. Sex was created by God. He came up with it. So for us to say sex is dirty, we shouldn't talk about it, it's horrible, it's bad. No, it's not. I don't know about you, Mark. I mean, I'm a married guy. I'm thinking sex is a great thing.
It's just the way God created. Fantastic.
Exactly.
But the people are just nervous how to present that.
Absolutely. And I understand because all throughout the Bible, sex is talked about from a biblical perspective. To say that sex shouldn't be mentioned in church goes against what the Bible even teaches, because 100 to 137 times, depending on your translation, sex is directly addressed in the Word of God. And it even gets pretty graphic at times, and I ain't even just talking about Song of Solomon. I'm talking about other places, but it's because sex is not bad. Sex is good. It's very good. God designed it. He created it. And we have, unfortunately, turned it into a taboo subject. And because we've made it off limits for our conversation, we end up telling kids that it's not something that we can talk about. You need to go find that out from somewhere else. And they do.
Oh, yeah. There's so many channels they can go and get the information. And it's so sad why we're being so quiet.
I'm right there with you. So sex was created by God, and then we also need to be proactive when we're talking about sexual issues by teaching them that God created male and female. You know that right now it's a major issue. Sexual orientation and gender identity is there's a definite desire from many out there to overwhelm our society with this idea that you are not supposed to be one or the other. You're going to be able to just decide, and it doesn't matter how you were created. Hey, we got to teach our kids God created male and female. Mark 10, 6 through 9 says, at the beginning, God created them male and female, and then goes on to talk about marriage in a very clear way. And that's what we also got to talk about. Before your kids are dealing with sexual issues, teach them God designed marriage to be a special lifelong relationship. Rather than feel that we got to rail against gay marriage and how wrong that is, how about just teaching them what marriage is supposed to look like?
Yeah, what's the
and
truth?
Talk to them about that at the young age, and show them what a right marriage between a man and a woman is, and teach them that God instituted marriage as a holy bond long, long ago. And so it doesn't matter what the Supreme Court or anybody else comes up with now. God already defined it. It's not up to someone else to redefine it. Mm-hmm. And so that's important. And then we just got through talking about some of those identity issues. But before your kids are dealing with identity issues, there's a couple of things that we as children's pastors can teach them over and over. First of all, God designed them. God designed them. Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. See, they were designed and formed by God. And not only that, but they are God's masterpiece.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing when he created them.
Right.
He created them exactly the way he wanted them. They are his masterpiece, just like an artist who designs a beautiful painting. God took his time on every part of the children in your ministry. Mm-hmm. He created them and designed them exactly the way he wanted his masterpiece to look. And when we look at ourselves from his perspective, then we can see how wonderful we really are. I want to illustrate this if I can, Mark, okay?
Okay, good.
I want to show you an incredible painting that is beautiful. I mean, it's unbelievable. You ready? Here it is. I mean, check that out. Do you see how gorgeous that is? I see the confusion on your face. Well, yeah, you want to know why?
Why? Because there's nothing.
Well, actually, there is. But you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. We're zoomed into it. We're focusing on all the defects and the things that don't look quite right. But when you pan out and you look at the painting from the perspective of the artist,
right?
That's what kids do. They start looking at all the little details. They're getting so focused on what they perceive as defects, and they focus in on, my nose is too big, my eyes are too close together, and I don't look right. You know, some kid in the hallway says something about their ears, and from that point on, they're convinced they're Dumbo. You know?
Oh, that's right. You're exactly right.
Tell them you are God's masterpiece. He knew what he was doing when he created you, and by the way, you're going to grow into those ears and you're going to look pretty good. So you help them out by seeing themselves the way God sees them. Not all focused in on the little itty bitty things that they think are a big deal. Instead, taking it in from the perspective of the master artist. And finally, you got to tell them before they're dealing with those identity issues, tell them God paid a high price for you. You want to talk about what you're worth? You know, how do you know what something's worth? You know it by what somebody's willing to pay for it, right? Those baseball cards that really only cost about 2 cents to make. You get one that's got Babe Ruth as a rookie on it, and suddenly you got somebody willing to pay $1.5 million for it.
Exactly.
Now, what makes that little piece of cardboard worth that? That dude was willing to pay that for it. So it's worth it.
Yep.
Well, what are our kids worth? When they say, oh, I'm worth nothing, I'm just worthless, you remind them, oh no, you're not your own. You've been bought with a price. God sent his son to die on the cross for you, pay the price for your sins so you could be redeemed. That's how much you're worth. You're worth the price of God's son. So don't ever call yourself worthless. Don't ever think that you have no value. God thought you had enough value that he was willing to sacrifice his one and only son just for you.
That's right.
See, that's the kind of message that our kids have to hear. They've got to hear that God cares about them, that he designed them, that he's got an absolute plan for them, and that he paid a high price for them.
That's right.
It's not just us, though, because there's a lot of cultural issues, a lot of things that you can address. And I got to do a word of caution here because I want to make sure everybody understands. Not every issue is something that you need to address as a group, because you got kindergartners and up to 5th or 6th graders.
Exactly.
If you're trying to talk to these 6th graders about stuff they're struggling with, those kindergartners are going to be, oh, what?
Yeah, it's inappropriate.
Not age appropriate. So not everything and in every detail should be done as a group. But like you're doing, have a special class or a retreat. The kids, their parents sign up for them.
Yeah.
And then you can
come. The parents are going to come too.
Well, that's sweet.
Yeah. That's
pretty awesome. Well, I have children's ministers ask me all the time, but what do I do if a kid just comes out and asks a question? They say, well, what's like Christmas time? What's it mean to be a virgin?
Oh yeah.
Virgin Mary. They're asking that. Or what is sex? They've heard it and they're wanting to know. And here's what I tell them to tell. Value, don't freak out. Don't act like, oh my goodness, this kid asked me this question. But just look at him and say, you know what? That's a very good question. And I'll bet that your mom or your dad would want to be the one to talk with you about that. So when they come to pick you up today, do you mind if I just let them know that you asked me that question, and then maybe they can talk with you about it later once it's just the two of you? Because that's one of those conversations I think parents would love to have with their kids.
Yeah. So I think we shouldn't be surprised if the mom just looks at you and goes, oh, I don't know what to say. And you're like, would you like for me to kind of help you here? And they just throw them a lifeline. There's some of them that would really appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, and perfect segue into our next segment here.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Because it's not just about what you do in being proactive and not reactive, but also if you're going to respond to a hostile culture, you got to equip the parents. You got to equip the parents. They're the ones living with the kids. They're the ones that God has created to be the key leaders of their child. And so you got to equip those parents, get them ready to have those difficult conversations about difficult topics. Yeah, parents will look at you and go, oh, I don't know. But you got to, even before that moment comes, be telling your parents, have sidebars with your parents and have trainings with your parents where you're telling them, look, you've got to take the opportunity that God's given you, the responsibility that God's given you, and you've got to have these conversations with your kids, because if you don't, somebody else will. Then you're going to have to try to undo what the world did.
Right.
And that's a whole lot harder to do than give them the truth ahead
up front. And I'm kind of thinking at the retreat, one of the goals is that I am eliminating a bunch of extra meetings and I'm just giving the awkward opening to whatever, and then letting them be able to talk together all through that, because somebody else went ahead and made it awkward. So mom or dad are going to address this for you. And they really are the heroes here.
That's perfect. And the reason why we want to elevate parents is because God's plan is for parents, not us, to be the primary spiritual leaders of their kids.
Absolutely. I have said that over and over. I agree.
It is not us. And I won't take the time to read them all because we're kind of running late here, but Deuteronomy 11:18-20 talks all about it.
They're the spiritual mentors to these children, not us.
Absolutely. Proverbs 22:6, Ephesians 6:4. We'll bust through those real quick. But in equipping your parents, you mentioned it earlier, and I kind of brought it up as well. But I've got a really good resource that I'd love to tell your
brand new. This is brand new.
It is brand new. I wrote
this. Way to go, Brian.
Well, thank you. I wrote the book, Talk Now and Later: How to Lead Kids Through Life's Tough Topics, and it ended up going to #1 in the Christian family category on Amazon, and did really well last year. But I had a lot of parents and a lot of churches asking me, say, hey, have you ever thought of turning it into a video-based small group curriculum so that we could have the author teaching these topics, and then it allows us as the children's pastor or the small group leader to engage in conversation and discussion. So here's what they can do. If they go to highvoltagekids.com and it's actually on the front page there, but they'll click on that, or they can go to talknowandlater.com, I believe is what it is. I don't even know my own website for the book. I think it's
okay.
What it is.
You
can the link. It's not even listed on here, but I think it's talknowandlater.com. But go to that and pick it up. It's actually right now at highvoltagekids.com. They can pick it up for the next week or so for cheaper. At retails, I got one sitting here. It comes with 5 books, so you can have a small group. You can order more, and I even have a bulk discount on our website for that. But it also comes with a DVD set that has 6 sessions, and we talk about how to talk to kids about God, sex, self-image, making wise choices, choosing the right friends, death and tragedy, bullying, money, divorce, restoring broken relationships, forgiveness. I mean, lots of big topics. And I'd love to equip your folks with that. And so they can.
So our people are going to be able to see this the first week of August.
Oh, sweet.
Do you think that will be available first week of August?
Yeah, it's already available now.
Okay, great.
It's on our website. Technically, they're not releasing it, I think, until July 15th. But I got it early, so it's there on the highvoltagekids.com site. Yeah, they can get that right now.
Awesome.
Now, as you're teaching your parents, here's a couple of things. We're just going to bust through these things real fast.
Yeah.
All right. Teach your parents when they're having these tough topics that every child is different. All right. Every child is different. Young kids, older kids, every child is different. They need to be sensitive to their children's needs and to their children's way of understanding. Don't just jump in with a small child and give them all the details about sexual intercourse. Oh my word, don't do that. Little by little, give them what they need. And every child's different. Also, don't freak out. When you're having the conversation about sex or other difficult topics, don't get all weird, because then if you do that, kids think, oh, this is not a topic that I can talk to mom about. I can't really talk to dad about this, so I need to never bring this up.
They freak out.
Yeah, and if you freak out, you're going to guarantee the conversation In right there. They're not going to do it. Also, I tell parents this all the time. Don't only give part of the story. Don't just, if your kids ask about gay marriage or homosexuality, don't just say, well, we believe homosexuality is a sin, period. Well, no, that's not what you should do. I mean, that's part of it, but it's only part of the story. Instead, teach them what sin is, that's choosing to live outside of God's plan and purpose for your life. And that sin is willfully choosing to disobey God's commands. And then revisit the story of Adam and Eve and the fall and what that did to mankind, and give them an opportunity to understand that it's not just that that's a sin. Talk about why God wants us to avoid sin, because he's got a plan for our life, and sin destroys that plan.
That's right.
And so I think harping on, and kind of goes into the next one, don't just focus on the don't. Don't just say, we believe homosexuality is wrong or gay marriage is not right. Instead, they need to hear what we do believe. They need to hear what you as a parent believe.
That's an excellent point.
Yes.
Because we have to be passing on our faith. You have to use your words and do that.
And don't just focus on what we don't believe. Focus on what we do. So obviously I've kind of rushed through an awful lot.
It's great to get a taste of this, though. It's very good.
Here's what it comes down to, though, Mark, really. And this is what the whole thing is about. If you want to combat the culture, be the church.
Yeah.
Just be the church.
Yeah.
Ephesians 4:14-15 says, then we will no longer be immature like children. We won't be tossed and blown about by every wind of new teaching. We will not be influenced when people try to trick us with lies so clever that they sound like the truth. Boy, doesn't that sound like the media and the world today? Instead, this is what he says we are to do. Speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. That's our mandate, not to get angry and get bitter and, God forbid, use hate-filled words and phrases. Instead, show the love of God, speak the truth in that love. Just because the truth of God's word is different from the beliefs of others or the ruling of a court doesn't mean that we should join with others and resort to name-calling and feeling like we're better than them and all of that mess, all right? Yeah. Instead, the church should respond just like God told the people of God to respond in 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. That's what I want for my community. That's what I want for the people that I know and love. That's what I want for our world. I want this culture to be healed. I want their sin to be forgiven. And listen, it all starts with us. Right. We're the church. You see, we can't scream loud enough and force others to be humble. We can be humble, though. Mm-hmm. We can't make other people pray and seek his face, but we, as the church, can. Yeah. We can't force people to turn from their wicked ways, which a lot of people try to do. We can't. But I'll tell you what, we can clean up our act and turn away from our wickedness so they see a difference in our lives. See, when we do all those things that he just listed, what does God promise that he's going to do? He's going to hear from heaven. Yeah. He's going to heal our land. So stop picketing and screaming and yelling, and instead start praying. Start being humble. Start showing the love of God. Turn from your own wicked ways and watch how God hears from heaven and forgives sin and heals our land. And watch everything begin to turn around. We just need the church to be the church, Mark. That's what we need.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Brian, man, you have really lit a fire with what we could possibly do in leading our kids, our parents. I know these things would be huge with my parents right now as we start to unpack some of this. It would really equip them. And
get one of these, man.
I know it. And the idea of you teaching it and me just having to facilitate it, which means push the button and kind of start the conversation, man, that's an ideal situation. I so appreciate you and all that you do in children's ministry. You're an inspiration. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And hopefully everybody, I think you said you're going to put some links, and hopefully they can contact me if they have any questions about anything I've shared. They can get on briandollar.com is my blog, and there's a contact button, that email comes directly to me, and I answer all emails myself. I don't have some elf doing it for me. I promise you. It's me. So I'd love to talk with you and love to help in any way I can.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being with us today. And hey, friends, if you have enjoyed this podcast, I'd love for you to leave a review in iTunes and even give us a star or two or 5, whatever you think. And that way it could be in front of more people and they can enjoy it as well. I'm looking forward to unveiling my next book, 31 Days to Finding Your Kids Ministry Mojo, which will be released in September. September 18th, actually, is the launch date. You'll hear more about that later, but we want to say, keep up the good work. Your life in children's ministry is a gift, so go and make it count.